My friends, what are you seeing right now? These are images of FA-18, the American Super Hornet, tearing through the skies of southern Iran at low altitude, followed by a brutal detonation almost right on its tail. It's not just a scare. That blast is the ultimate proof that the rules of the game are changing. The pilot barely escaped, saved by flares or by the enemy's miscalculation, but the thermal message left in the air is clear. There's a man on the ground with a shoulder-fired launcher capable of destroying tens of millions of dollars worth of equipment in seconds. Now pay close attention to the magnitude of what we're about to address today. Iran knows that its conventional war is over. They understood that they can't stop the fury of the United States Air Force and Israel in a direct head-to-head fight. No, my friends, they can't. But instead of backing down, they opened the wallet of the global underworld of geopolitics to create the perfect tactical nightmare. What the Pentagon is investigating isn't troop movements, but contracts worth $60 to $70 million that flow silently through the sewers of international shell companies. Let's be realistic. You don't go to a Chinese state-owned store, swipe your credit card, and walk out with hundreds of anti-aircraft missiles for the axis of evil with a receipt. Donald Trump was surgical. He demanded that President Xi Jinping promise not to arm the Iranian regime. Officially, Beijing smiled and agreed. But the Ayatollahs of Iran operate like mafia bosses. And for them, if the front door of the state is locked, the back window of the black market is always open. The contract to acquire 300 to 400 Chinese-made MANPADS was not signed with China's Ministry of Defense. It was signed with a shell company based in Hong Kong, in China, identified behind the smoke screen as Zhongyi Boeing. The delivery plan that was drawn up is worthy of a hyper-sophisticated drug cartel. The logistics plan is for the weapons to leave the shadows of China, cross the airspace or secret land corridors of Pakistan, and end up in the hands of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard. Naturally, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Beijing and the Pakistani military rushed to the microphones to call the accusation false and unfounded. But here is the question that Western intelligence needs to answer and that we need to ask. Why did Iran, a country that proudly boasts its large long-range missiles, stoop to the level of smuggling portable launch tubes? The reason is the bloody collapse of its main infrastructure. During the last 5 months of brutal annihilation, Iran tried to compete for altitude with American and Israeli fighter jets, using batteries from the colossal Russian S-300 and its own Bavar 373 systems. The result was a technical rout. American F-16 Wild Wizards fighters operating in missions to suppress enemy air defenses surgically dismantled this architecture. And why? Because a large fixed search radar to find the target needs to emit a massive energy beam. And as soon as it emits the signal, it signs its own death sentence on the panels of American and Israeli fighters, which track the emission and destroy the radar before it can fire. Iran drained its entire defense budget, losing its giant radars. And after losing the ability to dominate the skies at 40 feet, Iran did not give up. It decided to turn every inch of ground into a lethal hell for anyone flying low. This is where the Chinese models KW-12 and FN-16 come in, which are at the center of this smuggling operation, with the first shipment scheduled for the next few weeks. Now let's dissect the lethal engineering of these green tubes. The KW-12 and FN-16 are not the old Cold War missiles that would miss the target if the plane turned left. We're talking about MANPADS, man-portable air defense systems, that reach a frightening supersonic speed between Mach 1 and Mach 2. If the missile travels at twice the speed of sound and the target is an American helicopter or a fighter jet flying 300 meters above the ground, the weapon's flight time is just a ridiculous 4 to 8 seconds. The pilot has less time to make a life or death decision than it takes you to blink, scan the instrument panel, and breathe. But the real terror of these weapons isn't the speed, it's the silence. The Chinese KW-12 or the Russian Igla, its Russian counterpart, doesn't use an emitting radar that beeps on the target aircraft's dashboard to warn the pilot they've been locked on. They use electro-optical sensors or infrared seekers, passively searching for the heat of jet engines. A member of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard can climb a 2,000-meter mountain site in a cave, point the tube at the Strait of Hormuz, and simply wait for the target to pass by. When the plane crosses, he pulls the trigger without the fighter knowing that a high-explosive fragmentation warhead has just left the barrel at Mach 2, triggered by a laser proximity fuse. If you think the danger of this terrorist maneuver is limited only to the supersonic physics of the missile that slipped through the Pakistan pipeline, wait until you understand the obscure doctrine of symmetric warfare that is reshaping the geopolitical chessboard. But before revealing how American military technology deals with this, subscribe to our channel, turn on the notification bell, and give the video a like because it takes a lot of work to make. Now follow me, everyone. What Iran is doing is not trying to defeat the United States Air Force. They know they would lose miserably. They are activating an air defense insurgency doctrine. It's the grim application of guerrilla tactics to the skies. They are abandoning the expensive and fragile integrated system. The new operational logic is to take hundreds of these Chinese MANPADS and spread them out in the hands of militias, radical groups, and isolated soldiers around strategic coasts and naval choke points like the Strait of Hormuz. These operators are mobile and passive, they don't emit electronic signals, they're cheap, and from the tactical point of view of a radical Iranian general, they're disposable. The real goal of having the Revolutionary Guard spread 400 shoulder-fired anti-aircraft missiles isn't to stop the American Air Force from flying, especially because American and Israeli fighters and bombers fly at altitudes far beyond the range of these missiles. The goal is to exponentially increase the risk and the financial and political cost of every low-flying mission. Do they want ground attack fighters to fly high, where they can't see small targets, and if they refuse to fly high, they want to shoot down a single aircraft? Even if it's just to use the captured or downed American pilot as a gruesome trophy to feed the regime's propaganda on state media. They want to turn every naval blockade flyover into a deadly game of Russian roulette with the pilots' lives. So now you must be wondering, how does a modern aircraft survive something invisible that travels so fast? And this is where the genius of aerospace engineering and electronic warfare proves itself on the real battlefield. Go back to March 19, 2026. A fifth-generation fighter, the F-35A Lightning II, was flying on a tactical combat mission over hostile Iranian territory. Reports indicate that the world's most sophisticated fighter jet was hit by ground fire. The pilot suffered shrapnel injuries. But the F-135 engine from Pratt & Whitney, one of the great engineering marvels of modern aviation, maintained its power, and the pilot got the stealth jet out of enemy airspace, landing it safely. The type of attack suffered? Zero radar warning. Everything points to an infrared fuse, possibly the same type of MANPADS we're breaking down today, coming up from the darkness. But if the F-35 doesn't beep that a radar locked onto it, how does it know it's under attack? The answer is called AAQ-37. It's the distributed aperture system that equips the F-35. Forget any defense system you've seen in Hollywood movies. The F-35 has 6 ultra-high-resolution infrared cameras embedded in the skin of the aircraft itself. They don't need to be aimed by the pilot. They provide a continuous and absolute 360-degree spherical view of everything happening around the aircraft. When the KW-12 rocket burn lights up the Iranian ground dozens of kilometers away, the AAQ-37 system doesn't just see the missile. In milliseconds, it calculates the rocket's trajectory, determines the origin of the launch on the mountainside for immediate retaliation. It activates the flare dispensers, the burning thermal decoys to blind the missile, and it projects the threat directly onto the pilot's helmet holographic visor. The man sitting in the cockpit can literally look through the steel floor of his plane and see the fireball rising up against him. But notice the lethal flaw that Iran is trying to exploit. Iran knows about this technology. The fighter jet also features the ASQ-239, the most advanced electronic warfare system in the world for sniffing out and analyzing radar beams. But as we've already pointed out, the MANPADS that the Ayatollahs secretly bought from China via Hong Kong are electronically deaf and mute. They don't emit any signal. Iran is forcing the F-35 to rely purely on detecting the heat from its engine and the AL-70 tow decoys, which are physically dragged by a cable behind the plane to take the hit instead of the fighter jet. Iran understood that going head-to-head with the ASQ-239 was technological suicide, so they decided to bet their chips on low-level terrorist tactics, hiding among the rocks with a hot explosive tube on their shoulder. Now I need you to validate the level of information you're receiving here. This analysis isn't for shallow minds. Go down to the comments now and type the two keywords, aerial insurgency and invisible siege. Type now. This is how we shield our engagement. My friends, we're not just talking about 400 missiles entering the Middle East. We are documenting the complete change in strategy of the most dangerous state sponsor of terror today. Iran has abandoned the fanciful pretense of having control of the air. They can't, they won't succeed. So they decided that they will sabotage, destroy, and make life hell for everything that happens on the ground or just a few meters above it. And the MANPADS doctrine expands to all fronts of hybrid warfare. It's the same twisted logic that led Iran, or a proxy group with its blind authorization, to hack into the control systems of more than 30 community water systems in the state of Minnesota. They didn't fire a shot, they didn't use radar, but the Iranian hackers changed passwords and forced Americans to operate the vital water service manually in the middle of Donald Trump's country. It's the same logic that used a cheap, stealthy ghost drone to hit the ship Inner Joseph Winter, an American floating gas storage unit off the coast of Egypt in Damietta. The crews had to evacuate in a hurry as the fire spread. Iran does this, doesn't take full responsibility, operates through shell companies, uses Pakistan as a mule, and refuses to fight head-on. But the news of heavyweight diplomacy involving the complete dismantling of Hamas in Gaza, brokered by the Trump administration, is a brutal blow to the backbone of the militias maintained by the Iranians. The regime feels that the leash is being tightened for good, and the beast, cornered by its own incompetence, resorts to desperate, dirty, and extreme tactics to prove that it is still lethal. The lesson that is etched into this moment in history is a somber one. A great nation does not fall only to the colossal forces of intercontinental missiles or gigantic threats detected by radar. A hegemony collapses irreversibly when it ignores the hundreds of silent, cheap, and scattered dangers that strike from the shadows, without a whistle, without warning, and without a face. But even knowing this, my friends, Trump and Netanyahu have just tightened the siege on Iran. And now it will be on land. Iran is surrounded by the sea. It is surrounded from the air, and now the land route will be sealed off. Nothing goes in and nothing goes out of Iran. Let the games begin. And today, my friends, the most valuable currency in the world is not the dollar, it's attention. For entrepreneurs and top professionals, the hardest part is excelling at what you do yet still feeling invisible. I understand that. You have a great business, you have great knowledge, but nobody knows you exist. Have you noticed how hard it is for people to absorb serious content on social media? It seems like only dances or memes go viral. I used to think the same way. But 15 years ago, on radio and television and then online, I understood that building undeniable authority requires dense content and a solid strategy. Today, generating 50 million views per month on social media, the method has been proven. I have the formula. And I am recruiting entrepreneurs and professionals who are the best at what they do, but who are still invisible. People willing to break through the bubble, be recognized at the top of their market, and have their expertise monetized in this huge world. They say it's a blue ocean, and I agree. The game now is about mindset, the media, And professionals triple their sales when they understand that they also need to be a media company. Your identity cannot be outsourced. The business owner needs to put himself out there and set the vision. Is the time over when you could record with your phone without any authority and still manage to sell? The digital world demands absolute professionalism. So on August 16th, I will hold a fully in-person intensive face-to-face with me in my studio in Curitiba. Hands-on practical experience. I will personally guide you in building your authority with the lethal method that got me where I am, monetizing all of this in dollars. Well, the QR code is on the screen, the secure link is in the description and in the first pinned comment, but I need to be straightforward. There are only a few spots left, 5 spots, and when the last one is filled, the steel door closes and that's it. So click the link now and come face to face with Shimon Oliveira. And I'm including 2 fantastic series that talk about the war in the Middle East. And because this was orchestrated over many years, it seems like Hollywood predicted everything. On our channel, with tips on series and movies, we have a complete curation already filtered, without woke culture, without whining. If there is any, we'll let you know. Don't waste any more time choosing something to enjoy with your family. So, the link is in the description, in the pinned comment, and in the card that appears on your screen. A quick survey. Would you like to see Shimon Oliveira hosting friends on an exclusive podcast channel to talk about all things Brazil? If you like this idea right, I want the podcast. Yes, my friends. Now subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and like the video because it takes work to bring these analyses to you. Blend your mind. I'm Shimon Oliveira and I'll see you at our next meeting. See you then.